What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Joe Ennis, or Joe Hatagwa. I'm a Sierra Leonean American living in Accra, Ghana. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia right now. And if you want to know what I think about some of the major stories that have happened in the diaspora over the last week, then this is the video for you. All right. So we are live across Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm going to give it a second for people to join. If you got questions, you got things you want to add, let me know. I didn't go live last week, and so I know that was a challenge for many people, because I know that everybody loves to be on these lives and give their thoughts and opinions about the things that are happening. So apologies for that, but I was traveling. I was on a flight, so I could not go live. But let me know if you guys can hear me. So somebody just sent a request to go live. Let's see who this is. Let's give them a chance to go live. Let's go. While we wait for people to get on, do you want to go live? There you go. Can you hear me? I thought I would go live with you. You asked to go live, so we are live. Can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me? Oh, first of all, actually, for those of you who are watching the live, let me know if you guys can hear me by giving me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up so I know that you guys can hear me. Pastor Catherine Smith says she can hear me. Cool. Bonnie's here. A few other people are on. Shout out to you all. I completely forgot to put the link to the YouTube live on Instagram. So if you want to watch what we're doing on the YouTube live, you can feel free to go over to the YouTube live. We could do it there. But yeah, today we're just talking about a couple of things that have happened in the news, right? The Little Mermaid trailer came out last week, and there was a renewed sense of anger amongst many people who prefer to have other people play Ariel and the Little Mermaid. Then we also had the story about the Celtics head coach who's been suspended for the year. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and what that means. And then lastly, of course, Rihanna has been, or at least not lastly, but the topic we want to talk about is Rihanna being selected for the Super Bowl halftime show next year, 2023. On YouTube, can you guys let me know that you guys can hear me by giving me a thumbs up? Just want to know that you guys can hear me. All right, so Instagram, I know that you guys can hear me. You guys have made it clear that you guys can, so that's good. But YouTube, let me know that you guys can hear me. Do a thumbs up in the comments so I know that you guys can hear me on YouTube. So again, last week I wasn't able to go live. Okay, so Quanisha Jones says she can hear me. Cool. Last week I wasn't able to go live, as I mentioned. I was traveling, so unfortunately, because I wasn't able to go live, YouTube is not pushing out this content as it usually does. You know how that goes. If you're not consistent, you miss 1 week, YouTube penalizes you. So anyway, all right. Before we get started, there are a couple of new people on the live, so I just want to give you guys a little bit of background on who I am so that you know who you're watching. So first things first is, my name is Joe Ennis, or Joe Hatagwa. Most people call me Joe. For those of you who are not familiar, I moved to Ghana in December 2020, and I have a YouTube channel that chronicles my move from the US to Ghana. And so I'm also building a house in Sierra Leone. My parents were both born in Sierra Leone. I'm a Sierra Leone citizen as well as a US citizen. And then as of recent, I have a new position over the last 6 months that has me in the United States once every 3 months for about a month or so. So that's really a little bit about me. I usually go live every Monday. I've only missed 2 Mondays, one because I was traveling last Monday, and the previous Monday that I missed was a couple months back when I was in the middle of Bo in Sierra Leone, where I had no access to internet. But usually I go live and I'll interview people who have moved to Ghana or somewhere in West Africa about their move and what it's been like. I've also done content about what's happening in the news in the diaspora and what's happening around the world, just my thoughts on it. And so that's usually what the lives are about. And then I also do like kind of a weekly vlog on what my life has been like over the last week. So I got 2 for coming up this week. And then I also have some content that I'm doing with a good friend of mine who also is a content creator. We've known each other long before we ever created content on social media. And so we're going to do some content about what it's like to live abroad and what we prefer, what we don't like, all of those kinds of things. So that's all coming. So really, that's what the channel is about. I do have an Instagram page for those of you who are familiar. That's a little bit more broad and focuses on a number of different things, news that's happening in the diaspora, things that are happening in Africa. And then I do go live on Instagram as well. So that's a little bit about me. That's some housekeeping there. So those of you who are not familiar, now you know. So Falcon Wings said she can hear me great. And Jaia, the man, my cousin, can hear as well. Cool. So as I mentioned before, I am in the States once every 3 months, and I am all over the place this time. I'm in Atlanta right now. Next week, I'll be in New York. I'll be there for a couple of weeks before I go to LA for a couple of weeks. I'll be back in New York, and then I'm going to be in DC in the middle of November. So this trip, I got 4 cities that I'm going to be in, and I'm going to try to see as many people as I possibly can. So this is going to be a lengthy trip. And then I'm in Sierra Leone for about a month, a little over a month, through the December holidays before I go back to Ghana. So a lot of traveling to do. And you guys are going to kind of follow along with me through that journey and all my content. All right. With that being said, there's 3 stories I wanted to go over today and want to talk to you guys about it, get your thoughts, and give you my thoughts and my opinions on some of these things. Because I think it's important. And I'm interested to hear where you guys are, because this is a very opinionated group. And so I think it's really interesting to kind of hear your thoughts on some of the things that are happening in the world. And so as they come up, I'll just put them up on the screen so that we can talk about it, so I can hear your thoughts. I think I want to start with The Little Mermaid, right? Why not start with, no, let's start with a topic that is a little less controversial. And then over time, we can get to that topic, because as we let more and more people join, it usually takes a little while for people to join. So we can start with this one, and then we can move on to some of the other ones. So we're going to start with the fact that that Rihanna was selected for Superbowl 2023, right? So this was something, if you guys remember a couple of years ago, the whole world was mad at the NFL, right? There was like people were trying to boycott the NFL, saying that we shouldn't be watching any NFL games, because they didn't want Colin Kaepernick to kneel, and they didn't want to give him a job, et cetera, right? And I think universally there was, and regardless of what side of what side of the kneeling you were on, people were mad at the NFL. There were some folks mad at the NFL for eventually kind of, giving in a little bit and saying that you can decide how you want to deal with the national anthem. And then there were other folks upset with the NFL for deciding to seemingly penalize someone like Colin Kaepernick and other folks for kneeling, right? And so, as a way to try to better relations, or have better relations with people of color, Jay-Z was brought in, and he worked on a deal to basically be kind of like the program director for the Super Bowl, right? And there was a lot of criticism of Jay-Z at the time. If you guys remember, there was that interview, or that wasn't an interview, but there was kind of like a meeting at a table, right? And they're all sitting around the table. Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, is there. Jay-Z's there. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he made a statement that people felt like, I think the question was like, should we still be kneeling? And he said, we're past kneeling, right? And I think when he said that, he pissed a lot of people off, and people were saying that he shouldn't be doing this deal with the NFL. And since then, you've had Dr. Dre perform, right, with obviously Mary J. Blige, who may have never have gotten on that level of a stage like the Super Bowl, to be honest with you. Let's be honest, they usually don't have folks like her. It's usually really, really, really big pop artists. And so she had the opportunity to share that stage. Snoop Although he's universally loved, he may not have ever had an opportunity to be on that stage. Even Dr. Dre may not have ever had the opportunity. And from even those discussions, what Snoop had said is that they were trying to tell Snoop what he could and couldn't do. And Jay basically said, no, you do whatever you want. I will deal with them, right? And so it's allowed for a different kind of expression at the Super Bowl halftime show, which I think is really important, right? Because I think it's always been curated by the NFL themselves. And it's good to see that there's a little bit more of, there's a group of folks that are being, let's say, represented that usually don't get represented at these shows. And not to say that there aren't people of color that are represented, but generally the genre of hip hop does not get represented at these shows. I mean, Nelly technically was on a Super Bowl halftime show once, but you know, that was different, right? So anyway, Rihanna has now been selected for 2023's halftime show. And so I'm interested to hear what you guys think about Rihanna performing at the halftime show next year. Do you guys want to see it? Will you be watching? I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. Anne-Marie Harding's here from the UK. Shout out to Anne-Marie. I want to hear, I'm interested to hear what you guys think about this. I'm going to give you my thoughts, and then I'd like to hear what you guys think. I think it's great. We were talking about this yesterday. You know, she's well known by people across the spectrum, right? And her music is enjoyed and liked by so many different kinds of people, whether it's young, old, doesn't matter what, you know, what your background is. People really do love Rihanna's music. And so I think she's a perfect choice for something like this because she has really big hits and she hasn't the kind of music that people really want to hear. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think. If you guys even care that Rihanna is performing, do you think she should be performing? I want to hear from you guys. So let me know in the comments. But in the meantime, yeah. So, and what songs do you guys think she's going to be doing? You know, like I think I have some ideas of what songs she's going to potentially do, but it'll probably be her top songs. So, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think. But yeah. So what are my thoughts? Let me think. So I know that she's going to be doing. Actually, I don't know what she's going to be doing, but I presume that she's going to do, you know, some of her biggest hits. And so the question is, is she going to do it alone? Right? Like a lot of people who do Super Bowl halftime shows usually bring out special guests, right? Like, you know, obviously, you know, when Beyonce did it, she brought out Destiny's Child, right? I'm trying to think of who else might actually be. So like Rihanna maybe can bring out Jay-Z. I don't know if she'd bring out Jay-Z. Some people speculate that she might bring out Eminem. I don't know if she'll do that since he was already on this year's Super Bowl halftime show. She has other collaborations that she has with other folks. So, you know, she obviously has a lot of collaborations with folks. So Calvin Johnson, wasn't it Calvin Harris? I think his name is. She's done collaborations with him. She's done collaborations with many other people. So I wonder if she will. I guess you guys let me know what you guys think. But in the meantime, let me see if there's any comments here. What's up, Mariama? Mariama Forbes just joined. Shout out to Mariama from the UK. So Minyard said, missed you. Yeah, last week I wasn't on. I was traveling last week. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to do my live. And so even this week, you know, it's been a pretty crazy weekend and week trying to reestablish being back in the States with, you know, using my bank card and getting my phone back up online and all of that kind of stuff. So so that's always been a challenge. So anyway, Christa Bella says, I'm happy she'll be performing. I'll definitely watch. What songs do you think she'll do? I'm interested to hear what people think she's going to actually perform. Because, you know, I've been a person who's always watched the Super Bowl halftime show. You know, everything from the Janet Jackson mishap going all the way back. I've watched the Super Bowl almost every year. And then, you know, the one that was a little boring, I can't remember which one it was. There was a halftime show that was a little boring. And so, or the game itself was boring. So what we ended up doing was watching The whole Beyonce album. Was it Lemonade? I think it was, or maybe it was the one before that where she did a whole visual album. And so we ended up watching that at a Super Bowl because I had a whole group of people there and they were kind of bored. The game was like a blowout. I think it was the year. It's a while back. So it was the year that the Broncos were, I think, in the Super Bowl and they were way up by like 20 points or something like that. Anyway, so Christa Bella thinks she's going to perform Umbrella, likely, since it's like a well-known song across the board. I think everybody knows that song, so it's pretty likely that she'll do that. I wonder what else she'll perform though. All right, anyway, we can move on to the next topic since not too many people have any comments about what they think she's going to perform. I think that, she'll likely perform Umbrella. She'll probably perform, I wonder if she'll perform her first single, upon the replay, since that was the song that really gave her big break. If she performs Umbrella, do you think Jay-Z will come out, since technically he is the, I think I can't remember what his title is, but he's the one who curates the artist and helps decide who performs. Destination Africa joined. Makia just joined. What's up, guys? So Mariama Forbes has an interesting thought. She says she thinks they're going to do another announcement and it's going to include Nicki Minaj as a second headliner. I don't know about that. I mean, maybe, possibly. I think the thing about Nicki Minaj is, when it comes to the NFL, they're a little afraid of anyone who could be a little risky. Since everything that happened with Janet Jackson so long ago, I'm not too sure that they're gonna want Nicki Minaj up on that stage, but maybe they will. I mean, that could be interesting. They only have one song together, if I remember correctly, off of Nicki Minaj's first album. So there's not a lot of overlap there, but maybe they would. Who knows? All right, cool. So let me just see if there's anything to speak of. She does have an album coming out. Super Bowl 57 is going to be scheduled for February 12th. It's going to be at the State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. She's going to headline the Super Bowl. The NFL new halftime show sponsor. Oh, there's a new sponsor for the NFL halftime show. So it's always been Pepsi, or at least it's been Pepsi for a really long time. And now Apple Music is going to be sponsoring it. I don't know if that matters, but anyway. So Rock Nation is, the label that she's on, and they're the ones who announced it. So it's they had a big thing on Twitter about it. Let me share my screen so you guys can see it. Like, basically, this was the way that they announced it, and they just announced it yesterday. So this was just announced yesterday. Let me share my screen. And those of you who are watching on Instagram Live, feel free to jump over to YouTube to see what I'm posted, what I'm showing on the screen here. Okay, so Phoenix Mars 01 says, I think Rihanna will perform Only Girl. She has so many hits. BBHMM, what is that again? Spell that out for me again. BBHMM. I can't remember what that stands for. But yeah, so I'm interested to see what she performs. But anyway, here's what the announcement looked like, right? So she'll take the stage for the first time at the first ever Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show. So yeah, it's can't believe it's Super Bowl 57. So anyway, again, it's February 12th, and so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so that's the Super Bowl halftime show. I wanted to get into next the story about Halle Bailey, who's going to play the black version of Ariel on The Little Mermaid, the live action version of Little Mermaid. Phoenix Mars got some more ideas about what she thinks that she's going to perform. I forgot. Yeah, so she might. So back to the Rihanna conversation really quickly. So she does have some. She has that. Okay, she has the work song that she could probably perform with Drake if Drake ends up deciding to come out. There's a song "Kiss It Better." I don't even know that song, but anyway, so she has some thoughts on what she thinks she's gonna perform. All right, cool. So let's go to this Little Mermaid thing, because I do have some thoughts on this, right? So I think representation matters, and we talk about that a lot. That's something that people just say, but it's important to see yourself on screen. And I have I'm of two minds of this, right? So companies are starting to realize that the idea of taking this kind of a stance has been helpful for business. It gets everybody watching and paying attention. Either they're going to hate watch or they're going to watch it because they love it. And so for me, I don't always care about the intent as long as it's done right and it still performs the same action. However, I think that there are better ways that they can do this. Now, Matt Damon recently talked about the fact that movies can't be original anymore because they don't sell DVDs anymore. And they used to be that you could take risks on movies and you could put together a pretty substantial budget. And even if the movie didn't do well at the box office, they had DVD sales, which was like it was re-releasing the movie, right? And because that doesn't happen anymore, one of the challenges that they have is movie houses and production houses have to try to do remakes of other movies that they know have done well, or do stuff that's based on a book, or and really they're not spending a lot of time focusing on new original content. And so Disney falls under that umbrella. Disney is remaking all of their cartoon movies that worked in the 90s or even pre-90s, and they're turning them into live action movies. In this case, they decided to have a Black girl play Ariel. And I think one of the interesting things that I think people have to keep in mind is that for the longest time, especially when it comes to like the stories of Egypt, they've almost always had white people play the roles of Egyptian pharaohs, Egyptian gods, Egyptian people, right? And it's happened so often, Cleopatra was played by, what's her name? Elizabeth Taylor, right? Cleopatra was played by Elizabeth Taylor many years ago, 60 years ago, whatever, 50 years ago. They were planning to do another Cleopatra movie, I guess when the Sony leak came out, but Angelina Jolie was planning to play Cleopatra, right? And so I think we have to, and these are actual figures, right? These aren't fictional figures. These are historical figures. And so, it's interesting that, that they'll have people who aren't of color play roles that are people of color in history. And then when it comes to a fictional person, you have a person who is of color playing a fictional person, and the people are up in arms. But I do agree, though, with the fact that if we are going to say that we have to stick to a standard that, people of color should play people of color, and from that background, just like there's a conversation about people playing like a Nigerian should be a Nigerian, not an American. In that case, then with the Little Mermaid, then maybe they should have had someone else play the Little Mermaid. I think that there are many other roles and stories that can be told where they can have a live action person play that person, and a person of color play that person. So to me, I don't care enough about the Little Mermaid, the movie, to care who played the role. But I think it's so important to have representation that, the fact that they decided to do it, there's going to be so many little girls who see themselves on screen. And it's important to see yourself on screen, no matter how trivial the role might be. I know someone in particular who her favorite character from Disney, even though she's a grown person, is the Little Mermaid, right? And of course, it was never played by a person of color. And so, although that's her favorite character, it's never been someone who represents her. And you very rarely see people who represent you on screen in these Disney characters. It wasn't until much more recently that they've done different people of different backgrounds, and most of the time it's been like stereotypical folks. And so this is interesting to see what they're doing here. Obviously, I think they're betting that this is going to bring a lot of attention to Disney. It's going to make them money. So I'm not sure it's really done with the idea of representation mattering, but it still has the same effect. So although I'm not necessarily a fan of companies doing things purely because of profits, if it has a net positive impact, then I'm not necessarily mad at the idea of it. So, but what are you guys' thoughts? What do you guys think about a Black person playing Ariel? What Haley's basically said is she did a Q&A session on her YouTube account, and she talked on the impact of playing this role. She described the strenuous process involved in stepping into the shoes of the beloved character. And, basically she trained for 3 months to build up her strength so she could act and sing while suspended in midair and while submerged underwater, right? Because obviously she's playing a mermaid, so she's going to have to be underwater in some cases. I dedicated so much time, blood, sweat, and tears went into the work for this film, she explained. In the process, I learned so much about myself. That's what she said. So here's what she said. Today, with all the kind of commentary and people's opinions going on, it just reminds me that to be number one, grounded and grateful that I have this opportunity, and the fact that it's sparking such a discussion like this for all of us. I know what it would have meant to me as a little girl to have been able to see a Black Ariel when I was younger. If I would have seen that, it would have changed my whole outlook on life. So again, speaking to why representation matters and what she thinks. So Phoenix Mars says, two things can be true at once. My inner 10-year-old loves, but my cynical adult brain is like, upside down smiley face. Yeah. I mean, look, it's at the end of the day, I think it's a net positive impact in my mind. Now, I think there are a lot of people who have really, really strong opinions, and the internet's full of trolls and people who are behind screens and saying very inappropriate and visceral things, or have visceral responses to the fact that she's been cast in this role. But in the end, I think it's a good thing. So that's my thoughts on this anyway. But I think you and I, Phoenix, are kind of in the same boat. I think we kind of agree where we are with that. But Phoenix does say, I can't wait for African lore to be on this big screen. I can't wait either. I mean, there's a few that they've done, right? The Woman King recently with Viola Davis. I haven't seen it yet. But, obviously that counts, I guess, to some degree. And so we are getting more of it. I think for a long time, the folks who are the gatekeepers in Hollywood didn't think that a Black cast could sell a movie, or if they could, it had to be about something like slavery in particular, right? And they didn't think that it could be done where you can make money off of a all Black cast for a comedy. And I think Will Packard, with Think Like a Man, I think proved them wrong. I think Black Panther has also proved that wrong with Disney and Marvel. So, I expect that you'll see more of it because they realize that there's actually a financial benefit to doing it, right? And so, that's what it comes down to is, do they think they can make money from it? And if they do, then they'll do it. So what Christa Bella said, it's sad. Even my 6-year-old niece found out that a few of her friends weren't happy that with this Little Mermaid change. It really opened her eyes. Yeah, I mean, look, there were a lot of people who were very upset about this, and it's interesting, right? Because when you're in a majority group, right, in like specifically the majority group in the United States, right, they are represented all the time, and the full spectrum of who they are represented all the time. You had shows like Jackass, right? But then you have shows that This Is Us, right? And you kind of get the full spectrum of their experience, right? But for the longest time, when it came to the Black experience, there were different times in history where you had the full spectrum of it, right? You had a doctor and you had a lawyer. With the Cosbys, you had an HBCU with a different world. You had Blackish, where you had their stories being told. But it's it's always been like in like moments in time, right? There hasn't been like a continuous full spectrum of the Black experience, right? And so it's interesting when you have people who get the full spectrum of their experience feeling like they're losing something with something like Ariel, right? Where they already have all of the representation they could possibly need across the spectrum of who, like, they can turn on anything and find themselves being represented, right? Flip to any station and there are different types of content that represents them. But I noticed that there's always this fear of the losing something when you have something like this happening, right? So Phoenix Mars says, I'm super happy for Holly. She's beyond talented and her voice is divine. Mariama Forbes says, Mermaid metrical character was inspired by African stories of fish turning into humans. There you go. I'm looking forward to Tommy's adaptation for sure. Yeah, I mean, look, that's one thing too, right? Like, at least in Sierra Leone, and I've talked to other folks from other parts of West Africa, there's a lot of conversations about these mer people, right? They don't call them mermaids. They're different names. Mariam, you'll have to tell me what we call them in Sierra Leone again. I can't remember, but it's always been something that we've talked about, right? And it's, and what was interesting about The Little Mermaid, if you guys remember, Sebastian, if I'm not mistaken, was voiced, and he was like a Jamaican, like a Jamaican accent, right? I haven't watched The Little Mermaid since I was like, I don't know, 6. But if I remember correctly, there was Sebastian from The Little Mermaid was Jamaican accented crab. Yeah, I'm just looking at it right now. He was Jamaican accented crab, but I'm trying to figure out who voiced it. He was taking over Triton's. Okay, his voice. Okay, so he was voiced by Samuel E. Wright. So let me see who Samuel E. Wright was. But yeah, I mean, oh yeah, so he was voiced by a black man, a black character who voiced him. But yeah, definitely was a Jamaican character, right? And so I think that's, it's interesting, right? How do you have? I mean, it's just interesting. So I'm interested to see how they cast everyone else, right? Because if she's going to be Ariel, then who's going to be King Triton, right? And I don't know. I'm sure they've casted everyone else. I haven't seen it. Oh, and in Sierra Leone, we call it Mami Wata. Mami Wata, which means like water mom, basically, I guess. Or water woman, I guess. Water woman, really more. Woman of the water, I guess. Anyway, all right. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Like I've gotten a chance to see what some of you guys are saying. Does anybody else have any other thoughts on this? Oh, and Jaia gave me that as well too. Yeah. So any other thoughts on this? Because I'm interested to see what people think. All right. So Phoenix Mars says, The Little Mermaid is a smaller part of a larger issue. Some people are saying that mermaids can't be black, which is stupid because many of our pantheons predate their iterations of mermaids and sirens from Greeks. Yeah, it's true, right? I mean, yeah, mermaids can't be black. Well, I mean, that's probably just the playing on the idea that they say black people don't swim, right? I'm sure that's where people are getting that kind of stuff. I mean, we're talking about what most people consider fictional characters, so it can be anybody. And I remember, the first Doctor Strange movie, I don't know if you guys remember, but the first Doctor Strange movie, there's a character there, the Ancient One. And the Ancient One was actually in the comic books, was a man, an Asian man who was the Ancient One. And then they had, who played the Ancient One? The Ancient One, I think that's what they called it, Marvel. Yeah. And yeah, Tilda Swinton, a British actress, played the Ancient One, even though in the comics it was an Asian man. So, many times they have changed folks from its other intellectual property to someone who's completely different. right? Like, so it happens all the time. And like, I remember seeing this meme of, you know, black characters played by white. Look at that. It already completed it for me. So here we go. Here we go. 25 times white actors played people of color and no one really gave a yeah. So so Angelina Jolie as Marianne Pearl, Ben Affleck playing Antonio Mendez, right? In Argo. Oh, Joseph Fiennes playing Michael Jackson. Mickey Rooney playing Mr. Yoneyoshi. Juliette Binoche playing Maria Segovia. Oh, the main character in The Last Airbender, right? Lawrence Oliver, or Olivier, sorry. Look at this. Natalie Wood, Johnny Depp playing Tonto, right? That's true. Katharine Hepburn playing Jade. Obviously, Elizabeth Taylor playing Cleopatra, which I mentioned before. So there's so many options here where you could see that this has happened. And nobody was in an uproar about these. And so it's interesting when you see that people are in an uproar about her playing this role. So anyway, oh yeah, John Wayne played Genghis Khan at one point in time, which is crazy to think. Russell Crowe playing Noah, right? Christian Bale played Moses. So many different options here you can look at, right? Oh yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal playing the Prince of Persia, which would mean he'd have to be Iranian. And Jake Gyllenhaal is not from Iran. So there's so many options here that you can look at, right? Where people have played roles that were not for the original person of color. So yeah, I mean, I just think that, you know, it's interesting to see how people are responding to this in a way that it just doesn't make sense, right? It's a fictional character, and there's so many times where there were other fictional characters and or real historical characters played by other races. Miss P is saying, I've never seen the original Little Mermaid, so I have no clue what you're all talking about. You might remember the original Little Mermaid. The original Little Mermaid looked like this. That's what the original Little Mermaid looked like. So that's what she looked like before, right? And so I think they have some side by sides. I haven't seen the side by sides, but anyway, it looks like they have actually casted it. So it should be interesting. Javier Bardem is playing King Triton. Aquafina is playing Scuttle. The prince is played by this guy. I don't know who that is. Ursula is going to be played by Melissa McCarthy. I don't know how well Melissa McCarthy sings, but I know that everybody at one point were saying they wanted to see Queen Latifah play Ursula, but it looks like Melissa McCarthy was already cast in this role. So anyway, I don't know how they're going to work out the story with Ariel being black and Javier Bardem being King Triton. We'll see how they do that, how they work that out. But anyway, so now you're caught up, Miss P. That's the situation. Yeah, so this is the thing that got everybody up in a tizzy. Right? They did this big reveal. why the graphics look good. The CGI is good. I mean,
out of the sea, wish I could be.
She added some flavor to that right there.
Part of that world.
Yeah, so that was the thing that got everybody mad. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people. So yeah, so anyway, that really pissed off a lot of people. Anyway, so Kash is saying it'll be like when Brandy played Cinderella and it was a multiracial cast. Yeah, I do remember that, right? Wasn't Whitney Houston in that as well, playing the godmother or something? I can't remember. But Phoenix is saying Queen Latifah played Ursula in a live stage play a couple years ago. Got it. So maybe that's where that came from, where everybody was saying they wanted Queen Latifah to play the role. I mean, she would have been perfect for that role, but they went a different route. Any other thoughts on The Little Mermaid before we move on? YMCMB 1955, what's up? Shout out to you. Thanks for joining. All right, so we'll move on to the last story. There was one more story that I wanted to share with you guys that I thought was interesting, and you know, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this, because there's a lot of different things that can go into this story. So Boston Celtics coach Ime Udoku was suspended for the 2022-2023 season, the entire season. Now, just a little bit of background on Ime Udoku. He is, if I'm not mistaken, married to Nia Long, right? Yes, he is. He is married. What does it say? Doesn't okay, it's partner. So he's with Nia Long. So they've been together since 2010. He's a former NBA player. He's the head coach of the Boston Celtics. First time the Boston Celtics have been in the NBA Finals since 2010, if I'm not mistaken. And he, as a first-year head coach, was able to take them all the way to the NBA Finals last year. What they are reporting, and it was a leak that came from the Celtics organization, was that he was suspended by the team, and it's because it was, okay, they're engaged. Thank you. Ms. P is saying they were engaged. So he's engaged to Nia Long. It's been reported that he had a consensual relationship with another staff member. The relationship was against team policies, and so the team decided to suspend him, but they didn't decide to fire him. Some of the news is coming out that he was offered either to resign or that they would suspend him, and some people are saying he chose to resign as opposed to the suspension. There's all kinds of speculation that it was someone else who was married, but none of those facts have come out as of yet. The one thing we know for sure is that it's one of those things that, like, because he's in a head coaching role and this is someone that might have been a subordinate, that's highly frowned upon because of role power and the fact that in that sense, the person who is on the other side of it may enter into this engagement because their job could be on the line, as opposed to fully consenting and wanting to be in a relationship like this. So that's something that I think is interesting. And the fact that they've decided to do it. And the reason why it's such a salacious story is because Nia Long is liked by all, and she has been for so long. Everybody has been a Nia Long fan, right? Ever since seeing her in, was it Friday? Was she in Friday? But anyway, it's just a long time ago, right? I think she was even in Boyz. Was she in Boyz in the Hood? Going way back to the early 90s, right? And she hasn't aged at all, right? And so the fact that people have seen him do this is something. I've also heard the spin that, well, he's Nigerian, so what do you expect? I've also heard that too, because, that's something that people say these days. But I think overall, like when it comes to being an athlete or a musician, like I think that that's just something you would have to anticipate when you decide to enter into a relationship with an athlete or a musician is the concept of the having to turn away so many different people who come after them. It's just something you really have to, it's just really difficult. Anyway, she was in Friday, but way before then, people were interested in her. That's what Phoenix is saying. So Phoenix saying, but everyone is talking about him and not the man who used welfare funds from his state with the help of politicians to build a stadium or something crazy. Yeah. So what you're referring to is Brett Favre. This gentleman here, cool guy, Brett Favre, this guy. So yeah, so Brett Favre's daughter plays at I think it's the University of Mississippi or one of the universities in Mississippi. And so he was given funds by the governor, or somehow there were funds given, and he was also paid $1 million. He gave the $1 million back, but he didn't give the interest back that he was supposed to give back. So that actually came out previously, and they kept it under wraps. He gave the $1 million back. They gave him $1 million, but he didn't give back the rest. Now, the Brett Favre situation is interesting because there's welfare money that's supposed to go to underprivileged folks in the state. Now, even if you've decided you don't want to have this welfare funds anymore, why don't we redirect those funds to cleaning the water? Because you know that Mississippi has this water crisis. And so, even if, because, a lot of times in Republican states, they don't like the idea of welfare, right? And so, or like right-leaning states. So, but there's a water crisis and they didn't do anything about it. I mean, there are people going there and handing out bottles of water. There's people who are like literally in lines. The military is giving bottled water to people because the water was coming out like black or brown. It's disgusting. Here we go. Here's a picture of what the water looked like coming out of the faucets in Mississippi. So meanwhile, Brett Favre was given $1 million, and the college stadium for his daughter's volleyball team was given, I can't remember how much money over time. So I think what Phoenix is speaking about is the fact that Ime Udoku's story is getting much more attention over the last couple of days since the story broke than what Brett Favre did, which is like much more of an egregious act, right? I mean, he's actually taking money from the poorest people in the state in which he lives, right? And it's clear that he knew somewhat that this was a bad thing. We're not all very clear on how much he knew. He's denying that he knew it was welfare funds. He's saying he didn't know it was welfare funds, and he was just saying it seemed improper that he was doing it, and he was just concerned that it seemed improper. Many other people are saying that they think and they know that he knew that it was welfare funds and he took them anyway because he doesn't care. And he's a right-leaning person. He's on the right side of the political aisle, meaning a Republican, and so he might be ideologically against welfare anyway. So yeah, but that's a completely different story, and that's something that happened. But I think and some people might say it speaks to the fact that, because he's not a person of color, there's not as much outrage about what he's doing. Whereas if maybe someone who was Black who did something like this, there would be a lot more outrage. And there's much more people talking about this story about Ime Udoku, where he didn't, from what it looks like, he didn't do anything that has an impact on a broader group of folks. Now, the fact that they did decide to suspend him for a year, there's a lot of speculation around that. Some people think that they decided to suspend him for a year because the person who he had the affair with was married, and maybe she was married to someone who can make the decision to suspend him for a year. There's some speculation around that. But the idea that they suspended him for a year for a consensual relationship does seem a bit harsh, considering there's precedent around the league for other people doing similar things and not having such a severe punishment. If you guys remember when Ron Artest, or Meta World Peace, or whatever he's calling himself now, the Malice in the Palace in Detroit, where the Pistons used to play, where he ran into the stands and fought. he was suspended for an entire year. So the fact that he was suspended for an entire year for hitting fans in the stands, and Ime Udoku was also suspended for an entire year for what seemed like a consensual relationship, is why people are a little bit confused. It seems like a very harsh punishment for that. But they may also be getting out ahead of what could be another story that we just don't know the details of yet. So we don't know, but more to come on that. But I do think it's crazy. But anyway, but yeah, so Christa Bella was saying, yes, all the movies, Boys in the Hood, Friday, The Best Man, Love Jones, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, she was on. Yeah, she played Will Smith's girlfriend for a little while on that show. Love Jones is Miss P's favorite movie, she says. Phoenix Mars says, people think because she's fine as wine that he would have been faithful. I think the thing is that you have to realize that I'm not going to say the phrase that people say, but I will say a phrase that people say. Find me a beautiful woman and I'll find you a man that'll cheat on her. That's what people say. I don't necessarily believe that. I think it's a little bit more like when you have someone who is in the public eye, you know, men aren't used to fending off people, right? I know women are. Generally, men are the ones who approach women, right? In general, men don't usually get approached by women. So when it happens, it's a little bit more difficult for men to fend them off. And when you're an athlete or someone of prominence, there's kind of a culture of being able to do it and there are no issues, right? Because most of the people who are in those relationships with them tend to already know that that's what they're signing up for. So, you know, I think, you know, that's the thing. That's the thing that I think that that's the way I see it anyway. But Phoenix Mars didn't even remember Brett Favre's name. Yeah. But yeah, just speaking to what could have the $1 million had done for the water issue, probably a lot, right? Of course, you know, and the fact that he was able to get it was kind of crazy. So Phoenix Mars saying, with all that goes on, Nia's ex isn't high on my priority list. In the social work field, we know trafficking is an issue for large sporting events, and it's radio silent during huge tournaments, Olympics, Super Bowl, etc. Yeah, that's a good point. You know, the whole idea of human trafficking and not really addressing it. Really, I think it's a really good point, especially at these events, because there are events where sex work is a prominent part of what happens when people come to these cities. And there are people that are there against their free will. And so, yeah, I mean, there's definitely something that needs to be done about that. Yeah. I mean, I think people are making, and I'm going to wait to hear more of the story with Ime Udoku, because they did suspend him for an entire year. And I just want to get an understanding of why they would do that. Because it wasn't the league that made the decision. It was the team that he was employed by. And so since they decided to do an entire year, something leads me to believe that there's more to this story than what has been reported so far. So it should be interesting to see over the next days, weeks, when more investigating gets done. We'll see what happens. Phoenix Mars does say that not to derail, Nia will be fine. I'm sure she will. Yeah, she'll be fine. All right, cool. Well, guys, today's been a long day for me. So I think I want to bring this live to a close soon. If there are any other thoughts, comments, things that people want to talk about, more than happy to talk about it for the next 6 minutes or so. We'll do a 1 hour live today, so we can bring this thing to a close. But you guys let me know if there's anything else you guys want to talk about. Any other thoughts? Yes, Christa Bella. Shout out to Christa Bella. She says, hit that thumbs up button. Yeah, make sure you guys hit the thumbs up. And also too, 70% of the people who watch these videos don't subscribe. Subscribe. If you've watched 3 or more videos of mine and you're not subscribed, we got beef. All right, you should subscribe. If you're watching these videos and you're not subscribed, you need to be subscribed. So make sure you subscribe. Hit that thumbs up. Share this with anybody who cares to have these nuanced discussions about this. But yeah, any other thoughts, comments before we go? I'm happy to address anything that people want to talk about. Sorry, I'm a little tired today, guys. I'm on a new time zone. I was traveling a lot. Last week I was in Germany. You know, this week I'm in Atlanta. Next week I'm in New York. for about 2.5 weeks. And then after that, I'm going to California. Then I'll be back in New York. Then I'm going to DC. Then I'm going to Sierra Leone after that. I do want to do like a little bit of a tour. I want to do meet and greets with everyone, though. I have mentioned this before. I still have to work out the details of what this is going to look like. But I do want to do a meet and greet in LA. And so I have more time to work on that. And I do want to do a meet and greet in New York before I go. And so, like I said, I'm going to use these lives to remind everybody that they're happening. And I'll give you guys updates as we go along. Phoenix Mars says, might be visiting Ghana for the first time next year. You're excited? Shout out to you. Definitely make that trip. It's well worth it. It's a life-changing experience. If you've never done it before, it's game-changing. Ms. P says, did you like the food in Germany? No, German food is bland, but I'm also vegan. So, sorry, for all you Germans out there, I mean not offend, but no, I mean, even when I wasn't vegan, I used to go to Germany. I went to Germany 6 times in 2 years, in 2014 and 2016. And I never really ate the food there because it's a lot of like bratwurst and like beef and all that kind of stuff. And I never really ate pork anyway. I haven't eaten pork since I was like 12, and I didn't really eat beef at the time either. So I didn't really enjoy the food. I was eating just like a lot of like veggies and pretzels. And even on this trip, luckily there were a couple of vegan restaurants, or there were actually vegan options at some of the restaurants. So I did have those. But most of the time I was at a conference, and so I was drinking a lot of water because I didn't really have a lot of time to eat. So it was a really aggressive conference. So yeah. All right. So Phoenix Mars says, I've been to Kenya and Nigeria so far. Okay, dope. We'll have to hear what your thoughts were on Kenya and Nigeria. I've never been to Kenya, but it's on my list of places to go. I got to go to Nairobi next year. Next year, I want to go back to Lagos. I need to go to Nairobi. I need to go to Abidjan and Ivory Coast. I need to go to Dakar and Senegal. I got a lot of places I need to go. I need to go to South Africa too. I need to get to Cape Town as well. So these are all lists, countries and cities on my list of places that I want to go next year. And I'll keep you guys all posted on all of that travel. All right, guys, we have less than 2 minutes left before we bring this thing to a close. Any other thoughts, comments, concerns on anything we talked about today? There is actually and Manelik put this, out there for me to talk about, and I may talk about it next week. Candace Owen, as you guys might be familiar with, said on her talk show, she has a talk show on Fox Nation or something like that, I don't know. But she mentioned that she believes that that colonization of Africa was a net positive for Africa. So that's an interesting conversation. I want to watch what she said and then actually give my thoughts so I actually can watch it. All right, cool. So back to the comments. Phoenix Mars says, I preferred the weather in Nairobi, but Kisumu was hot, pretty and green, beautiful people, nice. Mariama Forbes says, I'm planning to go to Senegal for next year, so let's plan to go together. Let's do it, Mariama, for sure. We'll talk about that. Mariama's also going to be in Ghana while I'm in Ghana, so we'll shoot some content there again too. So, I'm back in Ghana at the end of this year, and so all of my friends from Sierra Leone are going to be there. Mariama's going to be there, a few other people too, so it should be interesting. We'll definitely get some content for you guys. It'll be fun for you guys to watch. Phoenix Mars says Lagos was hectic and stressful. Yes and yes. He said, I enjoyed it though. I do want to go back. So much more to see. Yeah. I'm same. I need to go back to Lagos for sure. Miss P said, I'll be in Ghana in 11 days. Nice. Akwaba, welcome. Miss P says, so lucky, enjoy. Christa Bella says to Miss P, so lucky, enjoy. Phoenix Mars says, I want to find my maternal line if possible. Oh, you mean when you go, where is it though? Is it in Nigeria, your maternal line? Or you're still trying to figure that out? I actually do have some Yoruba in my blood, which probably explains a few things. That's conversation for another time. But my aunt in London was the one who put me on to that information. My grandfather, my mother's father, one of his parents was half Yoruba. So yeah, so I do have some Nigerian in my blood in recent history. Okay, Phoenix Mars says the Nigeria Kanuri, okay, from Kanu or from Kano, and then Fulani, okay. Also Igbo on my dad's side. Okay, cool. So that's Phoenix's background. All right, cool. Well, guys, I want to thank you all for joining. As was stated earlier, make sure you hit that thumbs up. Christa Bella said it perfectly. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next video.